Okay, let's continue on. And I must admit that I haven't got dressed yet this morning. I haven't had my coffee yet this morning. I wanted to get this done, so I'm still in my jammies. That's okay. I also brought my sewing machine and the table it's in out here to my living room because there's a little bit more room, and I've got my kitchen table set up behind my sewing table itself, so that I've got room for my quilt to lay on as I'm quilting, and it's feeding through. Oftentimes when I'm doing this, I'll put on music in the background to listen to, or listen to an audiobook, or an audio drama, or play, or whatever. Because if I had an actual movie going, it would be too distracting. But listening to something like that in the background is fine, and I can still pay attention to what I'm doing enough. I'll do the same as I'm piecing a quilt together as well. There we go. Ooh, we're getting close to the end now of this row. Just a second. Woohoo! That bulk up and out of the area. So another reason I do the quilting at home like this, rather than quilting by check and sending out to a long arm, is number one, the ones that I know are way out in Langley, which is a bit of a hike out there. And then I'd have to take it out, deliver it, wait for them to be able to have time to quilt it, because they often have other quilts already waiting to be quilted. And then I'd have to drive back out and pick it up. And the cost could be $150 and up per quilt. So yes, this is time consuming. The whole process of tracing out all these quilt designs onto the tracing paper, that is just going to get ripped off. But I'm trying to learn to do a little bit more free motion, like without having to have an actual design like this, whereas it's more freehand and as you go. And I'm learning some ruler work to work with a special foot that goes along thick acrylic rulers, to be able to quilt using those. But I think for ruler work, I need to work more on smaller pieces, like crib quilts or wall hangings, so that it's smaller pieces that I'm working with to get familiar with the whole process. So anyway, going back to why I don't usually take it to a long armor is the time constraints, but at the same time, the hours and hours and hours and hours that I put into figuring out a quilt design to put on the quilt and getting it all traced out, that's hours and hours and hours too. So I think in the future if I can work it out budget-wise, I may invest in doing that for some quilts. Whoops, there you go. I'm starting to run. So there's a little bit over quilting, like over going a little bit too far without having repositioning my hands. And that just leads to fabric puckers or real wobbly sewing. So what I'm working on is row number 10 of doing this. I have one more to do, but it won't be the full width of the design because I only have a shorter area on the outside to do, and so yeah, we'll figure it out. I have a full pattern traced on all 11 lengths, plus I did one extra, which became my master that I used as my quilting, like the main thing that the original that I traced over. And I got that folded up in a page protector sleeve along with the smaller version of the quilt design, and it goes into a big binder that I have of all the different quilting motifs, patterns, designs that I've used on various quilts before or have decided I was going to do it, and then when I laid it out on the quilt I realized no, that's not what I wanted, and I changed my mind. Or I had made the design too wide, and if it's a bigger quilt you've got too much bulk and you just can't work with a wide design. So that's what happened with this one. The original design I came up with was probably about that wide, and then I realized with the bulk and the length I have in this area here, that it just wasn't going to work. It'd be just too difficult. So then, and I had all my strips already traced out that will have to be used on another quilt sometime. So I hang those strips of on a hanger and have them hanging in a closet in the sewing room. I'm going to keep an eye on the time too, because I have another commitment in about another hour and a quarter, so. You almost like celebrate when you get close to the end of every strip, because that means that you'll take a break from the machine, because then I take it over to another table and I remove all the pins from this strip, and then I start ripping off the paper, and then I use little tweezers to get the little bits of paper that are stuck in there. Yeah, that's a whole nother process. I think I've got about 4 or 5 quilts after this one that are waiting to be quilted, and I haven't drawn out the design. On one of them, I know what design I want to quilt, and I think I can do it free motion by using an adapter on another foot that will allow me to echo quilt, which is just following the lines of the piecing. Whoops. What did I do there? Oh, shoot. Okay. I was thinking I was to the end because I saw a line go across and I realized, oh, I wasn't. So, what I have to do is I just will unpick the sign I just did. Come on. If I was moving the work, the quilt sandwich a little bit slower than I normally was like just now, then the stitches are really close together and it's hard to pick out. This may take a little while. This is like watching paint dry. It's about boring as anything. Sometimes if I have a lot of unpicking to do, I'll do it while I'm watching TV or something, a little bit. Something that's not too detailed, a show that I have to be really paying attention. I can follow the plot line just by listening. Or again, like I'll put music on, or just have some quiet time. I'll sit in my recliner chair, put my feet up, put a good light over. I have a nice hot light, which is terrific lighting. That was a really good investment. Don't regret that one. Probably bought it at Michael's with a 50% off coupon or 40% off, something like that. And yeah, or a really good sale. That's been my main lamp for over in the living room at my reclining chairs, and so I can, when I'm knitting or doing handwork, it's right there. Okay, I think I've got it back to where I need it to be back to. Let's see if I can pull through one more stitch. No, that one's pretty much knotted. So then what I do is I have a needle. It's got a fairly large eye on it, so I can get 2 passes of thread through. And I bring it together, usually to the back, because the tissue paper doesn't allow me to see exactly where that needle's coming up or going in. I'll bring both pieces of thread to the back of the quilt. This one's already knotted because I had stitched in place 2 or 3 times, so it's knotted already. But I will put an extra knot in it after I've got both threads knotted, and leave that knot, about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch from the end. Then I bring the needle up right close to where that knot is, like where the last stitch came up through the fabric. Make sure I'm not going through. Then I'm going to bury the thread, and so I just pull it through, and then that little knot that's a little ways away that I made, I just pull it, give it a tug, and it pulls in underneath the fabric, but it's buried inside the quilt sandwich, so next to the batting or into the batting. Ta-da! Okay, so how I deal with that, when I come back, bring my machine back to exactly the same area, same spot, and so I bring my needle down, bring it back up, and then I pull the bobbin thread up and leave a tail, because I will then knot and thread and do the same process, but from the top after I pull the tissue paper off, and that will secure that. And then I'm hiding my knots so you can't see it. Well, we would have been done if I hadn't done that silly thing, but wasn't paying close enough attention. I have little thin line drawn across my quilting motif pattern on this tissue paper in the anticipation that that might be the end of the quilt row. But in fact, it was about 3/4 of an inch shy of that. Oh well, it happens. It happens. Or like, sometimes I'll be quilting along and thread will break, or I run out of bobbin thread because I forgot to change the bobbin to a full one, and so I might have to unpick back in order to be able to do that burying of the thread. A lot of quilters will just do a bunch of series of short, very short stitches just for little ways, and then just snip their threads. I don't like the look of that, so I do it more in the style that I was taught with the old-fashioned hand quilting, and I'm much happier with the result. Okay, so into the end here. So what I do is as I got to the end, I go back and I sew about 1/8 of an inch from the actual edge of the quilt top, just to secure it. And I find it's easier to do that when I still have the tissue paper on, because the top, it just glides better. And because I'm sorry. Sorry about that. The length of the quilt knocked it over. Okay, so we'll come back and talk a little bit later.